Welcome to Franchise Mode. We get into a little bit of college football today. Before I even start that, make sure you all are subscribing, liking, and sharing. If you listen to our Apple podcast, if you're on YouTube, Spotify, make sure you're following and subscribing to Franchise Mode and the M&R Network on all social medias. Thank you. Now I have my guest, Alec Elijah, coming on today. Fire guest, one of my favorite guys. He's a college football expert to me. He has more scouting in the college football community of anyone that I know that's around my age group. Love what he does. Hope we all can bring you a fun episode and keep tuning in if you want to keep supporting Franchise Mode. All right, so we're coming back with another segment. We got the USC UCLA. This is the People's Champ segment. The people's new team that everyone seems to be worried about everything.
Everyone's a Trojan fan now.
Everyone's a Trojan fan now. Like, they were dead in the water for years, but now everyone's a Trojan fan now. So, okay. So, for one, what did you think about the USC, UCLA, kind of following the OU, Texas? Like, all right, let's go to a bigger conference. We get a little bit more revenue, and theirs in 2024. It's even closer than Texas and OU.
So, with USC and UCLA, I feel like, being in a big city like LA, that has a lot to do with, their whole move, their need for more revenue, their need for more attention. Not that the Pac-12 doesn't get attention, but, nationally televised games for USC and UCLA is going to bring in a lot more eyes. But, same thing with Texas and OU, with USC and UCLA. I think this is a very good move because not only do they get to play higher competition, but it opens up opportunities for teams to join the pack. We've seen, for years, for the past 2-3 years, people have been asking, why hasn't the pack, gotten a smaller extension, just add in a couple of teams. I think with USC and UCLA leaving, it does open up some opportunities, especially for teams like Fresno State, who have been in the dark but still produce talented players. Teams like San Jose State, they're going to get opportunities. Because at the end of the day, with USC and UCLA leaving, let's be honest, you really just have Oregon left over. That's a true moneymaker. Yeah, you have Utah, but you're in Utah.
Yeah.
No disrespect to the Utahnians, but at the end of the day, like, we look at a team like Oregon who has like 25 different jerseys. We understand why. Revenue's coming in, nationally televised games are coming in.
If the Nike owner is an alum,
the Nike owner is an alumni. Like, obviously, teams like that. I'm actually surprised that Oregon, wasn't one of those teams that was like, hey, I want to move up too. But at the end of the day, I get it. The Pac-12 isn't a bad spot to be in. They're probably maybe the third best division to be in after the SEC, I would like to say. But like I said, it opens up a lot of opportunities. Mm-hmm. I do hope that we do see some of these smaller market teams take advantage, especially in a division like the Pac-12 where, they have room for expansion, whether they like it or not. They do have the room for it. So, I'm hoping we see with the USC and UCLA move, we see a lot more moves. As far as USC and UCLA, I do think UCLA is going to struggle a little bit.
Oh, they're in a big struggle.
Move, just because, they do have the talent production. They do have the talent level.
They have Chip, right? Chip Kelly.
But they're going into, deep waters with,
Michigan State.
Fish. We look at, we look at USC. USC, they're loaded at this point. Lincoln Riley took everybody with him. He's got all his prospects.
Yeah.
He's got guys ready to transfer over at, his literal call. Guys.
Jordan Addison.
It's not bad to play in Southern Carolina for sure. Southern Carolina.
California.
Southern California is definitely not bad. You're by the beach. You're in the heart of damn near Hollywood, and you get to be under the bright lights. All he has to say now is we're going to get more nationally televised games. We're going to get a lot more revenue, a lot more NIL deals. That's the biggest thing too, is it opens up the bag for these teams. UCLA, we'll see. I'm hoping that because of this move, a lot more recruits are going to want to go to UCLA, but it's hard. If somebody puts UCLA and USC in front of you, you're going to be like, rather go to USC.
Yeah, I think UCLA is going to get eaten alive, at least early on. 2024, I don't think that's enough time. Is that? I'm assuming that means 2 more seasons. I'm not sure if that's enough time. Like
I know USC will be ready within a season. I think
yeah.
like
USC I think might
Texas.
win 9 games this year. Like, they have a good team. It's the trenches like we talked about earlier. Like, that's real. Like, that shows you how good your team is, how good is your O line, your D line, like that type of stuff. Your front seven, like, and they're not 100% there yet. And it's like, but only thing with UCLA, Chip Kelly's a former NFL coach, so he did with Oregon. He hasn't been amazing with UCLA so far, but you trust Chip Kelly to kind of get it right in the next couple of years. It's a little harder coming, from the thing that I guess that caught me was just the UC pipeline. They're breaking off of that, and now, and it's gonna be a November game or October game. They're going to like Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
like this shows you like the student athletes. That's a freaking joke. I mean, like, it's finals week or it's midterms, and I'm in Pennsylvania. Like, it's just
that's the only
possible.
That's the only like real negative to this, is that these two teams are all the way in Southern California, and all these other teams are on completely different time zones.
3 hours.
Yeah, like 3 to 4 hours. So I mean, you're right in that sense. If we look at it from a student perspective, which you and I can at this age, I mean, it is gonna suck when it's come time for finals and stuff like that. But I know schools, they tend to have a little bit more leeway with their athletes. So we'll see how that does come into play. But I do agree, having dealing with jet lag, the day before your game, like that's not something you want to deal with, especially when you're going from somewhere like Auburn all the way to UCLA. It's like,
like, that's like, come on. And just weather environments. But okay, let's go to UCLA, Lincoln Riley. We all know that you talked about, I think, on the M&R show, on our other show. Very controversial move. We'll have to get back into that again. But regardless, the team looks good. They killed the transfer portal. They got my guy Shane Lee. They got my guy Caleb Williams. Like, they hit the DMV heavy. They got all of our prospects over there. Just what do you think is their ceiling this year? I think they can possibly win 8 to 9 games for sure.
For sure, they can sure win 8 to 9 games. I mean, like you said, that transfer portal completely killed the game. One of my favorite transfers that they got was Travis Dye from Oregon. He's coming off a 1,200-yard season. So for him to just come off a 1,200-yard season with what Oregon had, not that they had any bad prospects. Oregon always has
good guys,
prospects there. But you're going over to USC, where Lincoln has completely stacked everything in front of you. You're set up pretty nice, to be honest with you. I mean, you mentioned it too. Shane Lee from Bama, he's going to be going over there as well. Tyron Taleni from Kansas State. Those are some serious ballers that are ready to play in SoCal. I mean, in the future, I think they're going to be a lot more successful, just because Lincoln's going to have time to settle in, realize what works. He does have to take account for his environment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, Lincoln cleaned house when he went to USC. Yeah. Took a majority of the prospects that were already committed to quarterback,
like everything.
So I think this year they're gonna have some serious success, especially with guys like we already mentioned Jordan Addison from Pitt, who was an absolute stud. One guy that I'm super excited for actually is Brendan Rice from Colorado. Mm-hmm. He hasn't had a whole lot of opportunity to shine, but I mean, this is a prove it year for him. So going to a team like USC, you're going to get all the eyes on you, because let's face it, everyone's going to be watching USC. They're going to want to see what Lincoln Riley does. They're going to want to be able to say, oh, is it a boom or is it a bust? He loses 3 games this season, they're going to be like, oh, this was horrible. Lincoln Riley should have stayed at OU. And it's like, dude, it's his first season.
It's year one.
Like, it's year one. Like, he hasn't even gotten to touch the prospects that he was going to have set up at OU. Like, it's going to be the ceiling now, I feel, does have a certain point where he's going to reach, those 8 to 9 games. And then people are going to be like, all right, well, let's see what happens now. But I think going forward, especially, with the competition move in 2025, if he's still there, which I'm hoping he is. But like I said, we know how college football can be now, especially with social media. Everything will give you a different perception of how you view someone. We got guys like PFF, guys like Draft Network, chiming in on everything with broad platforms. So it does, make people's moods a little shift sometimes. I think now they're going to have a small ceiling, but going forward, we're talking like 2024, 25. I mean, that ceiling is just gonna shoot up.
Yeah, it's the roof. Because I don't think like they're gonna be able to compete with all the. And you're in, like you said, you're in LA. Like
you're in LA, like
good prospects are in,
like and that's one of the biggest things too. Like I can't remember who said it, but someone was like, "Well, if you look at the prospects and you tell them, hey, do you want to still play in Norman, Oklahoma, or do you want to come play with me in Southern California?" You're obviously gonna weigh the options and be like, "Well, Norman, Oklahoma, Southern California." You know?
And the NIL money, like you're getting the boosters. Not that Oklahoma doesn't have the boosters, we know that they do, but you're getting tech money over there. That's we know that's just different money. You're getting
Reggie Bush kind of money.
Getting like Reggie Bush was getting that like illegally. So man, now that I can legally get
now that it's legally
with inflation, it's gonna be real scary. Like it's gonna be real scary. All right, so for our last question on this segment, we're gonna talk about a little bit about Ohio State, who I think has a chance to possibly win the national championship this year. So, with this, as somebody that watches the sport closely, how good do you think Ohio State is coming into this year?
In all honesty, I really do think Ohio State can be the best college football team this season. Let's be quite honest. They have quarterback CJ Stroud. They have one of the best wide receivers that I've seen with my own eyes in Jackson Smith and Jigba. Yeah. And their trenches are just insane. Like every single year they have 2 to 3 linemen that get drafted. It's no question about it. I do think Ohio does have the goods, to go all the way.
Maybe got Chris Carter's son.
Yes.
The other receiver.
Yes.
He's a dog too.
He's a dog too. So, I mean, we'll have to see. Like I said, I do think Ohio State does have the ceiling to be the best college football team this season.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Right now, though, I can wholeheartedly say, as I look at everybody's rosters, I look at everybody's coaching staff, Ohio State is definitely the goods. Of course, Alabama's always going to be there. That's
of course, yeah.
That's a given at this point.
But Georgia probably takes a step back, though. I think
Georgia might just take a step back because of all the talent that they lost. We'll see what transpires, but right now, I'll give it to Ohio State as the top dog in college football. Just very early.
Yeah, I think Ohio State is my pick doing a national championship early. I guess it's not that early, but they're just my pick right now. If I'm just going with bowl selection, I have to bet money on it today. I like Ohio State. I would love to see Bama go. Bama lost last year, and I think they're gonna really come for some vengeance this year because.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially because Bryce Young's gonna see everything that everybody's talking about.
Bryce is him.
All this. Bryce is one of them ones though. For sure.
Bryce is him.
So like I said, we'll just have to see. Right now though, I would crown Ohio State. Top to bottom, defensively, offensively, I think they can get it done.
And man, like you said, in the trenches, we talked about that with other schools being good, but your front 7 on defense is just probably not on these teams' levels. Like even the Michigan State, we know those are going to be good teams. They're probably not going to be able to compete on that type of level though, just because they're not going to be able to compete for all 4 quarters or whatever.
I mean, even just speaking about Michigan right now too. I mean, Ohio State's still pissed that they lost to them. So,
they're not playing about that coming.
They're not gonna be coming in, on BS. They're gonna be coming in full-fledged, ready to go to war with whoever's in front of them, for sure.
And Ryan Day probably got some hate mail. That's a crazy rivalry, bro. I know the scheme is going to be crazy, and I would just love to see Stroud. First he was an A last year, but you want to see like that small stuff, the deep out connection more, hitting the deep ball more, all that different type of stuff. Yeah, so just going into Ohio State, great team. They're gonna be mad at the Michigan thing. I think I'm not gonna say anybody wants Bama or wants the good team, but they're a really good matchup. They can bring the same amount of trench players, same amount of skill players. Yeah. They got the QB, CJ Stroud, and he's coming for that QB1, just like Bryce is coming for the QB1. We all know one of them is probably going to end up, probably the one in the draft. They take that stuff seriously. That's a bag. Every time you drop a selection, you're losing $1 million, $2 million, $3 million.
They're competing for a Heisman too.
They're competing for the Heisman. A lot of people, receivers are competing. So it's I think that can be a really fun national championship. We're looking probably way too far ahead. We know how much can go down between then. But that's just my opinion. That could be a very fun national championship. What's your final take on Ohio State?
I'll tell you, I mean, you're right. That could be a hell of a national championship. Like I said, CJ Stroud right now is my QB1, without a doubt. So I'm really high on Ohio State this season. I really can't wait to see what they put together.